When your dog barks at you, do you actually know what that means? You probably think it's just noise, maybe excitement, maybe annoyance, maybe they just want something. But behind that barking, there's something deeper that most dog owners completely miss. It's one of the most emotional and instinctive ways your dog communicates with you. And if you misunderstand it, which most owners do, you might accidentally reinforce anxiety or confuse your dog even more. Let's start with what this behavior really means. 1. The big misunderstanding. It's just noise. Have you ever told your dog to stop barking without even thinking about why they're doing it? Most people think barking is just barking. A random behavior. Something to control or silence. Here's what's actually happening. Your dog isn't making noise. They're sending a message. And every bark has a different meaning, depending on tone, rhythm, and intensity. A rapid, high-pitched bark, that's very different from a slow, deep one. A single sharp bark, not the same as repeated bursts. But here's where most people get it wrong. They treat all barking the same. Think about that for a second. Imagine if every time you spoke, someone responded the same way, whether you were scared, excited, or asking for help. That's what happens to your dog. And over time, they either get louder or they stop trying to communicate clearly at all. What this reveals is simple but powerful. Your dog isn't being noisy. They're trying to be understood. And if you ignore the meaning, you don't just miss the message, you damage the conversation between you two. The signs of sound. What barking really signals. So, what do those different barks actually mean? A 2018 study from UT Lorenda University found that humans can distinguish different emotional tones in dog barks, even without training. Dogs also expect you to respond differently to those tones. Here's what's actually happening. A high-pitched, repetitive bark often signals excitement or anxiety. A low, slow bark, that's usually a warning. Short, sharp bursts, that's alert behavior, something's here. But emotionally, these aren't just sounds. They're states of mind. Think about that for a second. When your dog barks rapidly at the door, they're not just reacting. Their heart rate is up. Their body is tense. Their brain is in alert mode. And how you respond in that moment teaches them something. Calm them. They learn safety. Yell back. You amplify the tension. Studies on domestic dogs show that they adjust their vocal behavior based on human reactions over time. So, if barking gets attention, even negative attention, they learn to repeat it. What this reveals is deeper than training. Your dog is shaping their voice based on you, the scent and pack connection. Barking as check-in. Now, here's something most people don't realize. Your dog isn't just barking at things. Sometimes they're barking for you, especially when they look at you while doing it. Here's what's actually happening. Dogs rely heavily on scent and proximity to define safety. You are their reference point, their safe base. So when they bark at something unfamiliar, they're not just reacting, they're asking, "Do you see this too? Is this safe?" Think about that for a second. That moment when your dog barks, then glances back at you, that's not distraction. That's trust. They're checking in with their leader. Animal behavior. Researchers have observed that dogs use humans as a social anchor when facing uncertainty, which means your reaction becomes their conclusion. Calm and grounded, they relax. Tense or reactive, they escalate. What this reveals about how your dog sees you. You're not just part of their world. You define how safe that world feels. And hey, If this makes sense to you, hit like and subscribe. It helps us reach more dog owners who actually want to understand what their dog is really saying. 4. The instinct root. Barking comes from survival. Now let's go deeper. Because barking isn't random. It's instinct. Long before dogs lived in homes, their ancestors used vocal signals to protect the group. Here's what's actually happening. Barking was a survival tool, a way to alert others, a way to create distance from threats. Even puppies start vocalizing early, not just to make noise, but to signal need, discomfort, or separation. Think about that for a second. Your dog barking at the door isn't overreacting. They're fulfilling a role that's been hardwired for generations. Protect, alert, communicate. And here's where it gets even deeper. When you shut that down without understanding it, you're not just stopping behavior, you're interrupting instinct. What this reveals is powerful. Your dog isn't trying to annoy you. They're trying to do their job. 5. The selective truth. They don't bark the same way at everyone. Have you noticed this? Your dog doesn't bark the same way at every person. Some people get excited barks. Others get low warnings. And some nothing at all. Most people assume it's random. But here's what's actually happening. Your dog is reading subtle cues, posture, scent, movement, energy, and then choosing how to respond. Think about that for a second. They're not just reacting blindly. They're making decisions. And those decisions are emotional. A soft bark when you come home? That's recognition. A loud, intense bark at a stranger. That's uncertainty or protection. They don't show every side of themselves to everyone, which means the way your dog barks at you, specifically, is personal. What this reveals is simple. You're not just any human to them. You're their chosen person. 6. The ultimate revelation. Barking is emotional exposure. Now here's the part most people never think about. Barking is actually a vulnerable act. Here's what's actually happening. When your dog barks, they're exposing their internal state. Excitement, fear, stress, curiosity. They're not hiding it. They're expressing it. Think about that for a second. That moment when your dog barks and looks at you, they're not just making noise. They're showing you how they feel and trusting you to respond correctly. And here's where it gets even deeper. If you consistently misunderstand that, they start to change. They may bark more, trying harder to be heard. Or they may shut down because communication feels pointless. What this reveals about your relationship. Barking isn't just behavior. It's connection, and how you respond shapes whether that connection grows or fades. 7. The warning. When barking suddenly changes. And by the way, if your dog ever suddenly changes how they bark, don't ignore it. A normally vocal dog becoming quiet, or a calm dog becoming excessively reactive. This isn't random. Here's what's actually happening. It can signal stress, fear, or even underlying health issues. Think about that for a second. If barking is your dog's voice, then a sudden change in that voice means something is wrong. This is where most owners get it wrong. They focus on stopping the noise instead of understanding the shift. And that's how important signals get missed. So don't ignore it, because sometimes the silence or the sudden intensity is the loudest message your dog can send. So the next time your dog barks at you, remember this. That's not just noise. That's not just excitement. That's not just bad behavior. That's communication. That's instinct. That's emotion. That's your dog trying to talk to you in the only language they have. And that behavior, it was never small to your dog. And it shouldn't be small to you either.